Okay, we're going to start with who needs to stay for this. There's going to be a lot of you that this next part, the Affordable Care Act forms that are going to be required this year, will not apply to. So if you've done your research ahead of time and you know that you're an applicable large employer, you're going to go ahead and stay with us. If you're not sure if you're an applicable large employer, but you have more than 50 employees, go ahead and stay with us because you may or may not be affected by this. You'll have to do the calculations to determine if you are. And then anyone who offers a self-insured health plan needs to also stay for this. So any of you that this does not apply to, we thank you for your participation in today's training. And if you would like to at this time, you can go ahead and log off. For those that are staying with us, we will move right into this presentation. Okay, the first slide here gives you some important IRS websites and links. The first one is for the Affordable Care Act tax provision for employers. This is an overall website that was put together to explain the Affordable Care Act, what it is, what you have to do to comply with it, and all the information you're going to need. Very good to read over if you think you may have to do this. The next link down is to the 1095 and 1094 Form B instructions. And the next link is for the 1095 and 1094 Form C instructions. The next one is for determining ALE status. So if you are not sure if you qualify as a large applicable employer, you need to follow the instructions on this screen to determine if you are considered an applicable large employer. One thing I would like to note at this point is you're going to use 2014 employee full-time equivalent count to determine if you're an applicable large employer for 2015, which is actually reported in 2016. So you use your 2014 employee numbers to determine if you're a large applicable employer for 2015 filing, which actually happens at the beginning of 2016. This next number is just a phone number that we found for tax-exempt entities to the IRS. I'm not sure if they'll answer your Affordable Care Act questions here, but hopefully if you call them and they won't, they can give you a number to somebody that can answer Affordable Care Act questions. You're going to need to use the resources on these slides to determine what the filing requirements for your entity are and what you need to put on each line of the form. I'm going to walk you through the steps to enter and create the forms. However, we're not going to be able to give you advice on what you should be putting on each line of these forms, or rather you're supposed to file them. That is information that you will have to determine using the IRS, your tax accountant, or even maybe your health insurance people can help you with some of your questions. Let's do a quick overview of what these forms are. The 1095 is the employee copy. I'd like to compare that to the W-2. So this is what you'll be printing and giving to each of your employees if you have to file these forms. The 1094 is the IRS transmittal. It's similar to the W-3. Form B is for self-insured entities, and Form C is for anybody that's an applicable large employer. If you are an applicable large employer that is also self-insured, you will do Form C also. Some definitions and acronyms that we're going to use throughout this presentation. Affordable Care Act will be shown as ACA. Applicable large employer, ALE. Full-time, FT. The year being reported, tax year. Something I want to make note of is a full-time employee for the Affordable Care Act is an employee that works an average of 30 hours per week during a month or 130 hours, per week during a month or 130 hours during a month. That is how the IRS has defined a full-time employee for the Affordable Care Act. So do not, when you're doing these forms, when I say select all full-time employees, don't just select people that have worked 40 hours or more. In this case, it's 30 hours per week during a month or 130 hours during a month to be full-time. Correct it. When you are going to correct a form for the 1095s and 1094s, please read all instructions on doing that because they have very specific rules about when you should mark something corrected. And sometimes you'll mark the 1094 corrected, but not the 1095s. And they are very specific in their instructions as to when and why you would be doing this. So if you need to make a correction, make sure you've either consulted with the IRS or you've read the instructions and made sure you fall into the circumstances that they require you to mark that field. Okay, 1095 and 1094 forms have been added to UAN. They are found under Payroll, Reports and Statements, External Forms, 1095 and 1094 forms. For the first year, we have not put in the electronic reporting. We are looking at potentially putting in electronic reporting next year. We did not have any clients that were going to be required to report electronically, and the information and test site for the electronic reporting just came out. So due to us needing to get our release out, we were not able to wait and put the electronic reporting in for this year. The steps I'm going to go through in the next few slides are very abbreviated on the slides, but there is step-by-step directions that have been added to the payroll manual. So if you do need to do these reports, you will find the step-by-step instructions that you're going to see me demonstrating for you today in the payroll manual. Okay, the due dates of these forms. The 2015 forms are due to employees by February 1st, 2016, and the 2015 forms are due to the IRS by February 29th, 2016. The first group of forms we're going to go through is we're going to go through the ones that self-insured employers who are not ALEs need to fill out. So we are going to go through Form B. If you are self-insured employer and not an ALE, you will have to provide your employees that enrolled in the healthcare plan Form 1095B. Then you will be required to submit Form 1094B and copies of the employee forms 1095B to the IRS. Before you start the process of doing this, make sure your third-party administrator is not doing this form for you. We have heard under some circumstances that a third-party administrator sometimes will fill out this form for you. So before you spend the time, just ask the question. All right, now we're going to head into the software and we are going to start going through this. So we are going to go to Payroll, Reports and Statements, External Forms, 1095, 1094 forms. We are going to select our Add button. You're going to input a phone number. You are going to select self-insured yes up here in the first question. The second question, you're going to leave the plan start month at no for if you're self-insured. Then you're going to select all employees that had coverage at some point during the year. So even if they didn't have coverage all year, if they had coverage at some point, you're going to select them. And for demonstration purposes, we're going to select our first 2 employees. And then we're going to select Save. When we hit our Close button, it's going to ask us if we want to open the 1095-C editor. We are doing Form B, so this cannot be edited through the editor, so we are going to say no. Okay, to edit these forms individually, you are going to select the employees again and use the Edit button that is found below the grid. It's going to come up and ask you which form type you're editing. Self-insured is Form B, so we're going to say Form B, and we're going to hit OK. And then it gives you a caution message about marking them as corrected. So like I said before, make sure if you're marking them corrected, you've read the instructions. Okay. I'm going to point out this button a lot in this presentation, the Optimize With button. I think if you're doing these forms, you're going to want to use this button because what it will do is expand it to the point that you can see all the months across your grid without having to use a scroll bar at the bottom. So I always recommend the Optimize With button. You're going to notice that the employee is going to default into the grid for you. The question you need to ask yourself about the employee is, was the employee covered all year or just part of the year? Well, Brutus Buckeye's been with us for a lot of years, and he had insurance all year long. So we're going to click all year. Now, this is where you're going to have to pull your employee files, and you're going to have to tell us what dependents did Brutus have on his policy during the year. So Brutus had his wife Jessica. And then you have to tell how long Jessica had insurance. She was also insured all year. Then you're going to use the Insert Row button over here. And Brutus and Jessica have a daughter, Andrea. And she was also insured all year. Okay, and then in July, Brutus and Jessica had a baby. So Joe Buckeye.
Okay, I'm stuck on a social security number. There we go. Joe?
Yep, Joe Buckeye was born on July 30th. And we don't have the social security number for Joe Buckeye yet, so we're going to put in the date of birth instead. The thing you need to know here is he was born in July, so we can't check the all year button. He did not have insurance all year. If you're going to check individual months, you need to check the months, the box for the month in which the individual was covered for at least 1 day. So since Joe was born on July 30th, he was covered in July, August, September, October, November, and December. Okay, once you have completed putting in all the dependents for that employee, you are going to hit your Save button, and it's going to switch to your next employee. And Robert Bild started working for us in September. So he was insured September, October, November, and December. And Robert does not have any dependents, so we can hit the Save button on him. I want to point out that this screen has an import last year's dependents. This will be great for next year. This year, it's not going to import anything because we did not do these forms last year. But after you've gone through and input all the dependents for each of these employees that were on their insurance this year, next year you'll be able to come in here, import last year's dependents, and then make any changes that you need to make. So it'll save you a lot of typing in future years. So basically get through this year, and then next year it won't be so painful. After you've completed putting in all dependents for all employees, you're ready to print your forms. So we are going to print the 1095s. So we are going to select our employees. We're going to click the Print 1095 button. And we're going to say we want to print Form B, which is a self-insured coverage form, non-ALE. And we want to print it for our employees. Now, if you look beside the employees right here, there's an includes instruction page. So it's going to print out the form that you just created, and on the second page for each employee, it's going to give you a set of instructions that you need to give to your employees so they know what to do on their taxes with this information that you are giving them. So you will go through and print this. Now, one side note to that, if you have more than 6 dependents plus employee, you will get a third page that will be a continuation of the list of your dependents. So small families, you're going to see one page in the instructions. You get into a larger family that has 7 or more people on the insurance, you're going to get the front page, the instructions, and then a continuation page that will list all the dependents that didn't fit on the first page. After you've printed it for the employees, you're going to come back in and print it for the IRS. And when you print it for the IRS, you'll just get the form itself and not any of the instructions. Okay. After you've printed out both copies of the 1095, the one for the employees and the one for the IRS, you are going to make sure your employees are still selected, and then you're going to print your 1094. And you are printing Form B again and say, okay. It's going to bring up a little bit of information that it just needs to make sure is correct. It's going to default in your entity information and address and federal tax ID. Go ahead and put in your phone number. It's going to pull in a contact, tell you how many forms you're planning to submit. You're going to put in your title. And then you can hit the Save button and it'll print out your 1094. All right, so if you are just a self-insured employer that is not an ALE, that is the form you will need to fill out, and that is how you'll do it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these employees because I don't want them cluttering up my next presentation for the people that are ALE employees. But for those of you that are just self-insured, please don't delete it after you've done all the work. That was just for demonstration purposes. All right. For those of you that are an ALE or a large applicable employer, you are going to be required to provide your employees with Form 1095C, and then you're going to be required to submit Form 1094C and copies of the employee Form 1095C to the IRS. So we are going to go through a scenario showing you how to add your employees and edit them and then print these forms. So we are going to click on the Add button again.
Got a question that might be relevant now. They want to know if these forms print to blank paper.
Okay, the question we are receiving is, do these forms print on blank paper? And the answer is yes. So you won't have to buy any special forms to print these on, just have some paper ready. Okay, so we are going to add employees to, for our applicable large employer. So when we come in, we're going to say no to the self-insured question up here, but we are going to say yes to a plan start month. All of our employees in our fake township here have the same health plan start month, and our health plan start month is January. And then when you're selecting employees, you need to select all employees that were full-time for at least 1 month, even if they were not offered coverage or did not accept coverage. So anybody that had 30 hours a week for a month or 130 hours in the month, you have to select here, even if they didn't take coverage or even if you didn't offer them coverage, you still have to fill out this form for them. And then we are going to hit, after you've done that, you're going to select your save button. You're going to hit close. You're going to get, again, ask about this editor. And at this point, we're going to say no to it. You could select yes here, but I want to explain a few things first. So we're going to say no. There are going to be 2 ways to edit the 1095Cs. You can edit multiple employees using the 1095C editor button located above the grid. This should be used when editing a large group of employees where the answer is the same for everyone. If you want to edit each employee individually using the edit button below the grid, should be used when employees are not the same as everyone else. I will demonstrate both of these options so that you guys can see the difference and decide which way is going to work best for you. First, we're going to demo the 1095C editor. So we are going to click on that. It's going to bring in all the employees that are in your grid. We're going to use that Optimize With button that I talked about before, because then you can see all your months in one grid. And you're going to notice this editor has the option to edit by group or edit by individual. When you're editing by group, you're going to put your answers down in this bottom grid, and it's going to apply when you hit the Save button to anyone you've selected in the grid. If you select individual, it is going to open up the fields in the grid for you to go in and actually type in this middle grid right here, or the top grid, I guess it is. It's in the middle of your screen. Okay. So I made a mistake and I said that our plan start month was January, and actually it switched this year and our plan start month is July. So we are going to select that we want to edit the plan start month up here in the edit grid or edit drop down. And then down here in the group values, we are going to say our plan start month is July for all of our employees. And we're going to hit save, and you'll see that it changed it for all the employees up here in the grid. Okay, I'm going to make a suggestion for editing the 1095s that might make your life a little easier here. I'm going to suggest you break your employees into at least 2 groups. If you're only dealing with one insurance plan that you offer everybody, and they can either select single or family plan, and you're only dealing with one insurance plan, then you're probably going to split your people into 2 groups. If you're dealing with multiple insurance plans, like maybe your fire department union has a different insurance option than all your other employees, then you're going to deal with each insurance plan separately. And it doesn't matter whether they're single or family. It just matters how many insurance plan offerings you have. The first group of employees that you're going to want to separate out are the people that have been here all year, had your health insurance all year, didn't retire, didn't get hired, didn't go from part-time to full-time. These are just all your people that were here all year, had the health insurance all year long, and all the same answers to line 14, 15, and 16 are going to apply. So we're going to say Carl Crank and Harry Hammer for us were not in that group. They weren't here all year. They don't have the same answers as everybody else. So everybody else, I'm going to leave check marked here. And then we're going to edit these people as a group because all their answers for all these lines is going to be the same because we've offered them the same health insurance. So up here at the top, we are going to drop down and select line 14. In line 14, we're going to have to enter an offer of coverage code. And you can only claim to have offered the employee coverage if the coverage offered covers the employee for each day of the month. So completely different than what we talked about on Form B. Somebody was insured for one day of the month, they were considered insured. On Form C, you can only say you offered them coverage if it would have covered them for the entire month. So we had the same insurance all year long. It started over in July, but the coverage itself did not change. And we're going to say that it stayed the same all 12 months. The coverage code I need to enter is the same for all 12 months. And my coverage code for my insurance is 1E. This drop down has all the coverage codes you can enter. You will need to read through the instructions and decide which coverage code you have to pick based on your insurance. For example, we are doing 1E as the example we're going to use. Once we've done that, we're going to select save, and what you'll notice is it puts it in the 3 people we have selected, but it does not put it in the 2 people we unselected because those people were saying don't get these same answers, so we don't want it putting that in there. Okay, line 15. Employee share of lowest cost monthly premium for self-only minimum value coverage. Okay. Depending on the code you selected in line 14, you may be required to input the amount of the employee share of the lowest cost monthly premium for self-only minimum essential health care coverage offered. You will put this in for all employees even if they did not pay that amount or paid more because they had the family plan or a more expensive single plan option. So, if you are required to fill out line 15, oops, I hit my button, sorry. If you're required to fill out line 15 because of the code you put in line 14, you will have to enter the amount a single employee that's accepted the single plan would pay for 12 months of insurance on a monthly basis. So let's say you have a plan that you pay 90% and the employee share is 10%. You will take 10% of the cost of the single plan, divide it by 12, and that is your monthly amount. Now, what if I had the family plan? Do I put in the amount family paid? No, this is not done by individual. It's based on what would have if every one of these people selected single plan, what would have they paid? Not what did they pay. We don't care what they paid. So, because my plan restarts in July, my premiums changed in July. So instead of entering an amount that I took out for all 12 months because I didn't withhold the same amount for the 12 months, I'm going to have to do each month here. But you can select all 12 months and just put in one number. If you had the same plan January through December and you withheld $95 January through December, you would select all 12 months and put it in here. Because my plan switched over in July and our premiums changed, I have to enter it on a monthly basis. So January through June, we paid $95 a month for the single plan, or the employees paid $95 a month for the single plan. That does not include what the employer paid. And then in July, their premiums went up to $115 was the employee share. And you're going to hit save, and it will fill that in for the 3 selected employees. Line 16 is a employee relief code, a safe harbor code. For these employees, we do not have a safe harbor code. You would only be required to put one of these in if one applied to you. So in our case, we're going to say that no safe harbor code applies for these 3 employees. I'm going to show you something real quick. You can expand these employees so you can see what your answers were for all 3 of the lines. And you can expand all, collapse all, or just do a single employee if you want to see what your answers were. Okay, now that you've verified this information and you're good with everything you put in, we're going to close out. Now,
we need to get off that form.
okay. So now we've edited, you'll notice the 3 people we put in answers for now say that we've completed the information, but Carl Crank and Harry Hammer still say no. So we're going to have to edit them individually by going down here and clicking this bottom button and tell it we want to edit Form C for this employee. Okay, again, the corrected message, please be careful. Okay, Carl Crank, he was hired on with us on September 15th. Oh, optimize with button again. So line 14, he was hired on in September 15th. So we're going to have to individually put in the offer code for each month because he didn't have an offer January through August and even September because he wasn't, we can't count September because he did not start until September 15th. So we're going to put in 1H, which means there was no offer of coverage given to Carl Crank so we're going to put this all the way across until we get to October. And in October, we're going to put 1E, just like we put on all of our other employees, because that's when he received his offer of coverage. And then line 15, we're going to have to do on a monthly basis. And in October, November, and December, he paid the $115. Well, he gets $115 put on here, even if he had the family plan, because we put the single plan rate for everyone. Now, for Carl, we are going to have some safe harbor codes, and we're going to have to enter them by month. And what we're going to do in January through August, we're going to put 2A. The employee was not employed during the month. So he wasn't an employee, so that's why we didn't offer him coverage. But in September, we cannot claim he wasn't an employee because by the 15th of the month, he was an employee. But that falls under the Safe Harbor Code of 2D, which is employee in a limited non-assessment period. In this case, it means they did not start at the start of the month. And then we do not need to enter a safe harbor code for October, November, or December for Carl Crank. So we are going to hit save. And then we were on to our next employee, Harry Hammer. He retired on February 28th. So on line 14, again, we're going to have to do this on a monthly basis because our answer is not the same all across. And in January and February, he's going to get code 1E because he same health insurance offer as everybody else. And the rest of the year is going to be 1H. Okay, and then for line 15, we need to put in the amount that a single person would have paid. And we don't need to put it in the rest of the year because he wasn't employed with us and he didn't have coverage. And then line 16, it's going to be blank January and February, but for the rest of the year, it's going to be 2A that he wasn't an employee. Okay, so, and we're going to hit save. I understand we have a question about full-time and part-time employees.
It's in calculating, the part-time employees go into the calculation for full-time equivalents, and that's explained in that
ALE.
in that link for making the calculation.
Okay, we've got a question about how part-time employees play into this because for ALE status, and the part-time employees can combine to become full-time equivalents when you are doing your ALE calculation to determine if you're an applicable large employer. But when you are filling out this form, you only have to select employees that work 30 hours or more a week or 130 hours a month. So you do not have to pull your part-time people into this form, but they will go into the ALE calculation to determine if you are an applicable large employer. Does that answer our question for that person? Okay. All right, so the next step, now that it says that we've completed all the necessary information to print a 1095-C form, is to actually go print the form. So select your employees, select print 1095. We're doing Form C. First, you'll do the employee copy, and again, it will include instructions for a page 2. After you've completed printing your for your employees, go ahead and print the IRS copy, which the only difference is it won't include the instructions. It'll just be the form. And then once you have completed printing all the forms, you're ready to print the 1094 transmittal form. And again, Form C. And this form is a bit bigger than our last one when we printed the transmittal. Again, another message about corrected. So you're going to add or verify the phone number. You're going to verify your contact information. Verify the number of forms up here. If this entity is a member of an aggregated ALE group, mark this box. An ALE group is extremely unlikely for government entities because it has to be a company with a common owner or related under certain rules of Section 414. So probably not going to apply to any of us, so we're going to leave it unchecked at this point. Enter your title and verify the default date. We are going to go ahead and optimize our width so we can see everything. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to notice that we have these certifications of eligibility, and you're going to select all that apply to you. So you can select that you have a qualifying offer method, if you have a transition relief method, if you have this type of relief, and then if you have a 98% offer method. As you select and unselect these things, you'll notice things in your grid change. So make sure you understand what these mean and that you're only checking them when you need to check them. Okay, for line A down here, you are going to enter the minimum essential coverage offer indicator. Did you offer minimum essential coverage? We are going to say for all 12 months, yes, we did. Then it's going to ask you to put in a full-time employee count. So for each month, you're going to need to enter your full-time employee count. And then, and if your full-time employee count stayed stable all year, you can just do it under the all 12-month column. And then on the next one, you have to enter your total employee count. So this one includes your part-time people.
No numbers.
I hit my numlock key on accident. If you selected that you are an ALE member group, you will be required to do an indicator down here. That's very unlikely, so we're going to uncheck it. If you checked this box, you are going to have to select a code down here, which we are not going to do that either. We're going to unselect that box. Okay. If you did find out you were an ALE group, on top of having to fill this out down here, there is another tab where you have to indicate how many members, excluding yourself, and give their name and their EIN number. So we're not going to fill this out, but I just wanted to show you the screen in case it does apply to you, which I don't really think it will. And then you're going to hit save, which will print the 1094 off for you. We are going to head back over to our slideshow and move ahead past some of these slides that we already went through. Sorry. Okay, so some of you may be wondering, what if I am an applicable large employer and I'm also self-insured? What do I do? You are going to be required to provide your full-time employees with Form 1095-C. You will be required to provide part-time employees that participated in the health plan Form 1095-C. And you will be required to submit Form 1094-C and copies of Employee Forms 1095-C to the IRS. You're going to go through the steps that you're going to combine both steps that I already went over today to get these forms entered and edited for your employees. So you'll add the 1095 forms, you'll use the 1095-C editor to enter the ALE information for all employees that are alike. Then you'll use the edit button below the grid to enter any ALE information for employees that require individual attention. You'll also use the edit button below the grid to add dependent information for the self-insured coverage side. Then you'll print the 1095-Cs for employees and IRS, and you'll print the 1094-C for the IRS also. I'm going to go back into one of these employees. So I'm going to cancel out of here and go back into one of our employees. And I'm going to show you if you are both an ALE member and a self-insured, this will be check marked up here, and you'll be able to fill out your ALE information here and your dependent information on the second tab.
You breezed past it and I didn't see it.
Sorry, pick C.
Okay, if you're both,
Yeah.
choose C.
And then check the box up there for self-insured. And then you'll have both tabs to enter your dependents and enter your ALE information. So when you come in to edit, you will see your screen like this where both tabs are available. And when I went through it before, we were showing you one tab or the other, but not both together. So if you are an ALE member and also self-insured, you're going to have to fill out both of these tabs for every employee. All right, we're going to go ahead and open it up for some questions.
Question about salary with employees within the hours they work in order to determine the full-time equivalent status.
Okay, there's been a question about how salaried employees are going to play into your full-time equivalent calculation for ALE membership. There's no real mention of how you include salaried employees in your count. So I would say you're going to have to check with your tax professional or the IRS to determine, do you estimate hours or what do you use as their hours there? So you're definitely going to have to check with your tax person on that question because we don't have any specific guidance on it. Okay, somebody wrote in about they're self-insured, but they're not an ALE, and they're wondering if they do their full-time or their part-time employees. And if you're self-insured without ALE, you just do any employee that had your health care at any time during the year. You fill out a form for. So any employee, part-time, full-time, that had your insurance, you need to do Form B for.
Technically, that would be the same for the
Yeah, and if you have a self-insured and your ALE, if you had any part-time employees that had your insurance, you still need to fill out Form C for them because they were on your health insurance. Okay, the question is, if you do not have 50 full-time or full-time equivalent employees and you're not self-insured, do you have to do these forms? And the answer is no. If you're not an ALE or self-insured or both, you do not have to do this form.
16 different pages.
Do you have to be in 2016 to complete this? The answer is no. You just have to install 2016.1 and you will have access to it. You're going to have to use time cards. The question was, is there a report in UAN that will give you your hours by month so that you can make these calculations? And the answer is our time cards in our system are done on a pay period basis. So you're going to actually, to get that into the proper months, you're going to have to use the time cards that your employees fill out to do your ALE calculations. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Remember, if you have anything else, you can definitely give us a call on the support line. We may be able to answer some questions, but for the most part, if you're asking specific codes or specific questions, you're probably better off consulting your tax advisor. All right, thank you for your time today. Bye.